have this
Beer.
is
Beer.
itself.
Beer. So many choices.
Only no function beer well without.
Woohoo! Beer!
Hello and welcome to another episode of Beer Busters, where we're going to bring you the news and reviews of some wonderful brews. My name is Dan Baker, as always joined by my co-host and brewologist,
Steph Hefner.
and the household from entertainer,
Wayne Baker.
And today we have our wonderful fourth Beer Buster, who are very, very excited to welcome back to the Beer Busters podcast basement, Mr.
Colin Presby.
Thank you for coming back, Colin. We definitely appreciate it. And we have a lot of catching up to do with you, but before we do that... All right, so we found a couple of news articles that were pretty worthwhile to pass along to you. Now, you'll notice a common theme today. The theme that we have is the American Homebrewers Association. The reason for that, which we'll delve into a little bit, is Colin is running for a spot on the governing board. So we found a few articles related to that. Now, the coolest of which I'm going to start off with, I think this is awesome. The AHA is turning 35. As of last month, December, as of recording this episode last month.
Older than me.
It is.
It's older
And
than
me.
you.
And me.
Okay.
And much older than me.
And much older than
I
Dan.
was waiting for that.
I was too. Now, the article that I found starts off with saying, and I should probably preface this, that I wrote this, so I apologize. I mean, I took the notes from the other article and I paraphrased it in my own words as to not plagiarize, so I apologize if this sounds really stupid. Here we go. I have to put on my best announcer voice. December 7th is a day that will live in infamy for a few reasons. First and foremost, the tragic attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. Secondly, the AHA was created by Charlie Papazian and Charlie Mattson in 1978, starting in Boulder, Colorado, with the first issue of Zymergy magazine being published. And then after a few months in May of 1979, they held the National Homebrewer Competition and Gala Homebrewers Ball, and a total of a whopping 24 brewers submitted their entries into 6 categories in a single-day event. And Steph over here is shaking her head because we all know how much that has grown since then.
That's pretty good odds to win a medal, though, back then.
That's true.
Yeah.
Especially in 6 categories with 24. I mean, you break it down, if one person enters into each category, you have, 4 beers per category?
Yeah.
That's math with Dan.
All
That
right.
is, that is.
That's the most advanced
And if there's
math
a
you're gonna
gold,
get out of
silver,
me.
and bronze, there's only one loser then in each category.
That would suck to be that person.
It sure would. That would be terrible.
In 1984, Charlie Papazian, one of the co-founders, published a book that was called The Complete Joy of Homebrewing, which helped to encourage a revived culture of homebrewing around the world. And then thanks to the AHA, the Colorado representative in the government, of course, David Skaggs announced in 1988 that May 7th will be National Homebrew Day. And the AHA celebrates that every year with the Big Brew, a big event that they do, the first Saturday in May. In its total of 35 years, the AHA has grown to over 40,000 members across the country, adding events and competitions throughout the years. And every year they host the National Homebrew Convention, which Steph has updated us on that she was at last year.
Yes, and Colin was there, too.
Colin was there too, yeah. It was held in Philadelphia in 2013, featuring numerous homebrewers and homebrew clubs serving their brews for tastings. And they still continue to publish Zymergy, their bi-monthly magazine, and they have an e-magazine version of it they just brought out recently. E-Zymergy, it's called.
Zymergy was, in fact, one of the answers to one of the very first Happy Fun Time games.
That's
on
right.
the Beer
yes.
Busters podcast.
It's also an answer to a question on Beeropoly. I can't remember which
One
it
of
is.
the two.
One of the 2 games.
Brew, is that like a beer version
It's
of
a
Monopoly?
beer version of Monopoly, but it
But
apparently
there's
is
trivia.
not. It's not owned by the Monopoly people because the
Right.
board is changed just enough.
Oh,
So
right,
it's
right.
Monopoly-ish,
Right,
but
right.
not Monopoly itself. But it has some beer trivia questions in, which I always get excited about.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And now, as previously reported on Beer Busters, as well as what Zymergy was, homebrewing was legalized in 2013 in all 50 states, finishing up with Alabama and Mississippi passing bills to allow it. So all 50 states in the U.S. allow you to brew beer at home.
Woohoo!
All right.
Now, now this I'm sure you don't necessarily know the answer, but does that then count for winemaking as well?
I don't
Is that
believe
fall into the
so.
same
We
legal-
can fact check this, but I don't believe so.
Well,
right?
I think Colin might actually know.
Winemaking was actually nationally legal significantly before homebrewing. Homebrewing was
Okay.
only legalized by Carter.
Yes,
I believe in
1978.
78.
Yep.
Yes.
It was legalized by Carter in 78, and that was because of sort of a typographical error. It was an omission in the law that said that home home making of wine was legal, but did not extend it to beer.
Beer, okay.
And so in '78, Carter opened it up to beer and wine, but left it to the states to actually legalize it.
Okay.
And that's why you had some straggler states like Mississippi and Alabama,
Right, which only just
that
last year.
just got in on the game.
Okay.
And to be precise, people say it's the first time since Prohibition that all 50 states have had legal homebrewing. The catch to that is that prior to Prohibition, there were not 50 states.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's actually the
That's a
first
good
time
point.
ever that 50 states have had legal homebrewing.
That's a good point.
That is a very good point.
Yeah. So now the second article that we found relating to the American Homebrewers Association. If you are currently a member or are looking to become a member, your fees have slightly increased. Starting January 1st of this year, pretty recently, the membership dues increased. It's a total of $5 increase to bring the single-year membership to a total of $43, up from $38 then, which winds up being an increase of about 13%, and it marks the first time the dues have increased in 12 years, so since 2002.
$43 a year, that's pretty good.
It is.
Even so, I mean, that's,
Yeah.
And
yeah.
if you watch for things and talk to homebrewers, there are frequently promotions that include free books.
Right.
So
Yeah.
right before, a lot of people in our club, right before the new year, when you could still get dues for $38, we're able to get $38 dues and a free homebrewing book, which works out to
I
a
was one of those.
phenomenal deal.
Nice. Yes.
And even if you had a membership, it was totally worth renewing just to get the book.
And
Yeah.
the AHA was great at warning members that this was coming, and they gave us plenty of notice to renew at the lower rate. So it wasn't like a big surprise that all of a sudden January 1st, oh, it's more expensive now. So I really respect that the AHA did that, and I did get my free copy of Radical Brewing when I renewed this year. So
And
that
that's
was
still
a plus.
that's still cheaper than Amazon Prime, right?
Yeah, Amazon Prime's like 70
Like
or 80.
$79 a year or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, for 2-day shipping. Although, there was a story. Side note, Amazon Prime, a guy I work with at the radio station, he ordered a copy of Wolverine on Blu-ray. He ordered it at 9:30 in the morning, got home at 4, and it was there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, same
in
day.
Philly?
Was
Yeah.
that delivered
Wow.
by drone?
I wish.
They are developing drones.
I kind of want to get to that point. You know what? We never followed up, and I have to look this up at some point. The drone delivered beer.
Oh, that's right.
From
That
that
was one of
festival.
the first.
Yeah,
Wow.
way back.
Lots of really long callbacks today.
I'm okay with
Back to
that.
our first couple episodes.
I'm okay with that. It shows our memories are not declining with age.
No, or beer.
Or beer. Well, we've only had a tasting glass yet so far.
So just back to earlier episodes, am I the first repeat guest?
No.
You're the second repeat guest.
Well, there
Third-
was
Evil Genius.
Evil Genius,
Ah.
Steve Armstrong,
Steve-
sort of.
Well,
Sort of.
Steve
because he wasn't in
Armstrong-ish.
studio the first
Yep.
time, so you were the third.
All
But you were the second, fourth beer buster
right.
after Mike Kuhn.
That's right. Mike was the first.
Yes.
Wow.
But you were our first professional brewer on the show.
I'm tickled.
There you go.
And Pink.
Now, since 2002, the last time the dues for the AHA increased, they've grown their member deals by 420% to more than 900 participating locations, as well as launched their website, which is homebrewersassociation.org. And according to their magazine Zymergy, their website will be undergoing a complete redesign later this year in 2014. They have also launched, as I mentioned earlier, the online version of Zymergy called eZymergy, giving members instant access to all of their articles, and this way you can take it with you on your fancy tablets and phones, so you don't have to carry paper with you, because apparently the world hates paper now.
Hey.
I still prefer my
I
paper
carry a pen and
issue.
notebook with me all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, and if you pick up the next issue of Zymergy, which should hit the shelves February 21st,
Ooh, preview.
it may or may not have my picture in it, and perhaps a bio.
Nice.
Sweet.
So that means buy it.
Yes. If you see
Absolutely.
it, get it.
Yeah.
No, you need to join
Well, yeah,
so it gets
join,
delivered
right,
to your
that's
house.
right.
Join
quickly.
soon so you get
Yeah.
get it shipped to you.
Join quickly so it's shipped to you, and then you can vote for Colin.
Time is
Absolutely.
running
Yeah.
out.
And details will follow very shortly on that. Now, to finish up the news a little bit, I have one more story yet after this. The AHA was integral in supporting the legalization of homebrewing in Utah, Oklahoma, Mississippi, and Alabama, the last few states to legalize it. They've also worked with homebrewers on homebrew-related legislative issues in several other states, including potentially the ability for homebrew club members to carry beer in a vehicle for the purpose of attending a brew club meeting. Now, you can join or renew your membership at their website, homebrewersassociation.org. And now, as the final bit of news that I saw, which is really kind of just like a feel-good story, I guess, off of their website.
It's a lifestyle piece.
Lifestyle piece. Lifestyle with Dan. Oh, God. In 2010 in Colorado, the Rock Hoppers Brew Club started a competition, which was to pair a veteran member of the club with a newbie and see who can really just make the best beer out of it. What started as a simple experiment saw members Brian Keyes and Brian Pramov, I'm assuming his name is pronounced, join forces to create the best dark American ale for the competition. And now, according to Pramov, his partner Keyes has a great way with combining hops for IPAs, and I've had success with rye beers. In 2012, he had the chance to compete in the Great American Beer Festival Pro-Am for his American Rye Ale. The result of their partnership was a concoction called Knight Rider. I approve that name. A dark, hop-forward American ale with a dose of rye.
I think you have to spell Rider, though, for the listeners.
Right, I'm sorry. So it's Knight, N-I-G-H-T. Rider is R-Y-E-D-E-R. Rider.
Nice.
Clever.
Now, as a native of California, Pramov entered the Knight Rider into a competition at a place called the Brewery. And now the Brewery, I have to point out, if you go to Google it, is B-R-U-E-R-Y.
And they make amazing beer.
So I've been told. And now to differentiate between brewery and this place, I'm going to say the Brewery. Sorry. Now, their competition allows for homebrewers to compete for a chance to brew their recipe at the brewery and have it distributed in California and Colorado. And needless to say, Knight Rider won, of course, or else I wouldn't be reading this article. Now, once the brewery began brewing this beverage, the recipe was tweaked to optimize it for their system, which was very, very far more advanced than a homebrew setup that these two guys had. The most noticeable tweak swapped out Centennial hops for Amarillo, since they couldn't really get Amarillo. The partnership, they brewed 8 batches of Knight Rider, half of which Keyes and Pramov helped to make while at the brewery. Both Keyes and Pramov said that after brewing was over, they were inspired to take more care in regards to their pH levels, thanks to the advanced lab facilities that the brewery has. After tasting the mass-produced version of their creation, Pramov noted, "I think it's extremely close to our homebrew recipe and is even a bit more balanced." He was initially worried that bitterness would be too overpowering due to the large amount of hops in the homebrew recipe. Their original recipe was extremely high in IBUs, but the brewery's version tested in roughly the mid-70s or so. And the cool thing about this is if you go to homebrewersassociation.org, the original homebrew recipe for Knight Rider is available if you'd like to try it on your own.
Oh, that's cool.
I love that about the Homebrewers Association. A lot of times when you have winning brews, they will publish the recipes in the Zymergy issues, and that's really cool so that homebrewers can try to brew those recipes at home.
Yeah.
What a great opportunity for a homebrewer to have their beers commercially produced.
No, that would be so
Iron
cool to
Hill
have done.
Brewery is doing something. The one in Lancaster is doing a competition with Lancaster Homebrew, the homebrew shop in Lancaster, and the winner of that competition will get to brew their beer at Iron Hill.
So it's kind of like when Walter White moves from the RV into Gus's lab. It's sort of the step up from the home.
He's going pro.
It's the same idea.
It's the same basic thing.
Yeah.
I just watched that series. I binge watched it like 2 weeks
so
ago.
good. Did you get to the ending?
I finished it, yeah.
Is the end on Netflix now?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. I bought the second half of the last season on Amazon.
Okay. For anyone who hasn't seen it, Breaking Bad's phenomenal. Side note.
Yes.
So, now, as I mentioned earlier, there was a common theme, if you hadn't noticed or just forgot that I mentioned it, to these news stories, the American Homebrewers Association, because our guest, Mr. Colin Presby, is running for an office with the AHA. So, Colin, what makes you want to do that?
Well, the American Homebrewers Association has really done great work, like you said, with legalizing homebrewing in all 50 states and clearing up some of the weird laws, like can you bring beer in a car or not, and things like that homebrew is technically untaxed, so it's maybe not legal to transport. So they've been doing a lot of work with that. And I was looking at the current governing committee, and there's a whole lot of West Coast representation and not a whole lot of East Coast. So my big kind of general focus is trying to get homebrewers in our area in Pennsylvania, throughout the Mid-Atlantic and the East Coast in general, just to get out and vote for somebody who kind of represents our end of things. You know, you hear a lot about homebrewing in Colorado and California. It's huge out there, and it's just growing like crazy on the East Coast. Mm-hmm. So I think it's high time to have somebody from our end of things kind of out there representing. And I've got a really strong group with my homebrew club and some of the other local homebrew clubs kind of supporting me. So I wanted to give it a shot.
Yeah. Cool. Now, what kind of, I guess, perks would be involved with being on the committee?
Or shall we say responsibilities?
Well, what are the responsibilities then? Like, do you get any perks from that?
Sure. It's a little bit of both. The perks are the responsibilities, kind of. So
Good answer.
The one big thing is you have to show up for a meeting, an all-day meeting the day before the National Homebrewers Conference. So it's in Michigan this year, and the one requirement for being on the ballot is that if elected, you must attend the meeting and the conference.
Right.
Now, the perk side of that is that you get free entrance and guaranteed entrance to the conference.
Oh, that's
which
huge.
is
good.
Which is a big thing this year, especially because we saw last year in Philly, the conference sold out in no time. Same day. There were far more people wanting to attend than able to attend. So, if you have the hope of going this year, it's going to be a lottery system. So you sign up for the lottery and hopefully win a chance to get to the conference. And as a member of the governing committee, I'll be able to go guaranteed.
That's cool. That's
so that's
really
kind of
good.
neat. That's like the perk. The other sides of it are that there's a lot of conference calls, a lot of email chains, things like that. They're trying to do something that you can have meetings or teleconference stuff without actually being in the same place, or only one real sit-down huge meeting.
Yeah.
Right, and then everything else.
Yeah. Now, we'll get more into this a little bit later, but I do want to kind of just catch up with you as a person, because you are a person.
Well, thank you.
Now,
Just the candidate.
yeah. Now, last time we had Christian on from Golden Avalanche, and he mentioned to us that you are now at Stout's.
I am, yeah.
Right.
I had started off doing part-time at both places, kind of transitioning, and Stouts was able to offer me a full-time position, so I took it. The big upside is it's 20 minutes from my house, so
Ooh, very nice.
It's a much gentler commute than Weyerbacher, and even a little better than Golden Avalanche.
Okay. Now, I have to ask, if you are working two part-time jobs with two different brewing companies, do they see it as a conflict of interest?
Not really.
Okay.
I spoke with the supervisors at both places kind of about that, and they're both very different style. Golden
Okay.
Avalanche is a brew pub only. They don't
Right.
don't distribute. Their focus is kind of the people who come in the door. So we were able to brew beer and fulfill my responsibilities there while also doing stouts. And stouts distributes in 17 states. They're all over the place.
Wow.
So it was the only place that it approached conflict of interest is that Golden Avalanche also has a takeout shop.
Oh, no.
So there were 3 shelf spots that Stouts occupied.
Wow.
Not a big conflict of interest, but the beer that I was making on the other days of the week was also available there. So it was kind of neat.
Yeah. That's got to be kind of cool to see.
Yep.
Yeah, Stouts was actually one of the first craft beers I ever had, long before I even really got into craft beers. A friend of mine got a 6-pack of their Scarlet Lady, and I was at the time drinking Yingling Lager exclusively. And it would be even years after that till I finally really got into craft beers. But I really liked it then, even before I was into craft beers, and I just recently had it again for the first time in quite a long time, and it's a really good beer.
Yeah.
I really like it.
Scarlet Lady was one of my very first ever craft beer loves as well.
Yeah.
And I would be willing to say that Stouts occupies that spot for a whole lot of people because it was Pennsylvania's first microbrewery.
Right.
Also Pennsylvania's first legal brew pub.
Okay.
And it's one of the real founders of the movement. Carol Stoudt has done phenomenal work in getting craft beer from this tiny little stage in 1987 to what it is now.
Nice.
Yeah, and I know I was reading about them that one of their motivations was that they had traveled abroad and had a lot of beers in Europe and wanted to bring that sort of attention to detail in those traditional sort of recipes back.
Yep.
So that's really cool.
Yeah. Now, with stouts. Now you mentioned Carol Stoudt. Now, Steph, before we started the whole podcast thing almost a year ago, you got to sit down with Carol Stoudt, right?
I did, yes.
Cool. She gave you advice on homebrewing, was it?
No, it was when I first sort of seeked out applying. I had applied to the American Brewers Guild, and it's when I first became serious about looking at brewing as a profession, and I reached out to her as a woman in the industry, and she gave me some really good advice, and I kind of showed her my professional development plan and talked to her about what my goals and aspirations are. And she gave me some really sound, solid advice. I mean, she is a really smart woman who knows this business, knows this industry, and she's been able to see it evolve and has a lot of good thoughts about where it's going. And it was fascinating to sit down and talk with her. And I was there for about an hour with her, and it felt like 5 seconds. It went so fast. But yeah, I will cherish that conversation. I still have my scribbled notes that I took when I sat down with her.
Very
but yeah,
nice.
she gave me a lot of advice, and I still hear her in the back of my head every now and then.
Good.
And I was like, oh yeah, she was right.
Yeah. So is Stout's family run then? If she's still involved in it all?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Ed and Carol Stoudt own the brewery and the restaurant, and a lot of their children are involved in the day-to-day operations, and so there's really a strong family component to it.
So now, Colin, I understand that you have recently got engaged, right?
Yes, I am engaged now.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So
Thank
what's
you.
the girl's name?
Her name's Christina. She's a large animal veterinarian, and we've been dating for about 4 years at this point. So
Okay.
it's kind of a long time in coming, and
Sounds
we're aiming for a late May wedding.
Very
So
cool.
you were dating her when you were named the most eligible bachelor
I was,
in craft
fact,
beer.
yeah.
So
Oh, boy.
that's a bit scandalous. You weren't actually
Well, I was maritally
single.
I was
yes.
not.
I remember
not
you using that
engaged. I
phrase
was
at the time.
not entirely spoken for. So.
But soon you
Yep.
will no longer be
That's right, off the market.
officially
Sorry,
not.
ladies.
You heard it here first.
I did also want to apologize to you for the game last time you were on. That was extremely unfair, and you did the best you could with it, and we thank you for that.
It was pretty brutal, but I got over it.
You held
Okay.
your own pretty well. Yeah.
No tasting game today,
No
we
tasting,
promise.
Yes, listeners, for reference, go back to episode 6, our game segment, where we put Colin on a very, very hot seat.
Or, as I frequently recommend to my friends, listen to the whole episode except the game
Except-
segment,
right? Yeah. Okay.
because the rest of the episode is fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Cool.
we-
Speaking of games,
Yeah, speaking of games, well, also, we, again, want to thank you for coming back.
Absolutely.
For some reason, you felt the need to return. So, thank you for that. And now, as we do, and as we've done last time, Wayne has a game planned that is not a tasting segment. So, Wayne, what do we have in store today?
Well, it's that time again. It's a time of happy, a time of fun, a time of games. It's the time of the season for loving. That's right, kids. It's happy, fun time, and today we'll be shouting 3 cheers for Years of Beers, a perennial favorite here at Beer Busters Podcast. In this game, how it works, if you're not familiar, is I am going to be naming pivotal moments in the history of America's favorite beverage, humanity's favorite beverage, in fact, and it will be your job to guess the year that those events occurred. Whoever gets closest gets a point, and if you get it exactly right, you'll get a bonus point. And as a little extra bit of somethingness, in this version of Years of Beers, all these years are in the 20th century.
Ooh.
So all of these years.
So
that
I'll at
gives you-
least be within 99 years.
So yeah, everybody will at
Sweet.
least, yes, be within 100 years of the correct answer. All of these are within the 20th century, and we're going to kick off to my left with Dan. And the first event here, tell me what year this happened. What year was the first Great American Beer Festival?
Oh, I know
The
this.
first Great American Beer Festival was in the 20th century.
All right, cool. So, any from 1901 to 1999.
well, 1900 to 1999.
1900, yeah. Well,
I will give you a hint. It was not in 1900.
okay. So, in that case, I got a 1 in 98 shot. I'm going to go with. All right, hold on. I'm going to use science here.
I know it's the longest running beer festival.
But here's the thing. Was it in relation to what I had mentioned earlier with
Oh,
the
I am not
AHA?
giving you hints.
So the AHA was 1978.
He's just thinking out loud. He's just thinking out loud.
I'm going to go with 1982.
All right, Dan says 1982, which, ladies and gentlemen, was also the year I was born.
And I was born
Yes.
first.
Oh, you were born a little bit earlier. Colin, what year do you think it was?
I'm going to go with 81.
You're going to go with 1981, says Colin. And Steph, what year are you going to go with? Yee.
I'm going to say 84.
You're going to say 1984. Well, Dan was absolutely correct. It is, in fact, 1982. The Great American Beer Festival is the premier U.S. beer festival and competition. Each year, GABF represents the largest collection of U.S. beer ever served in a public tasting event plus a private competition. Brings together brewers and diverse beers that make the U.S. the world's greatest brewing nation. The first festival was held in 1982 at the Harvest House Hotel in Boulder, Colorado. There were 22 breweries, 40 beers, and 800 attendees. In 2013, there were 624 breweries serving over 3,000 beers to 49,000 people.
And they had to limit it. There would have been more
Yeah.
if they would have
If they
opened
would-
it to
yeah.
whoever wanted to be there and serve.
Yeah,
it.
and it sold out in like 20 minutes, and the year before it sold out in like an hour or something.
Yeah, and for those of you not good at math, 2012 was the 30th anniversary of the GABF, and they had banners and things like that of photos from the original festival, which was
Oh, wow, that's cool.
tiny, and
Right,
Charlie
right.
Papazian looked super young. And
wow. Yeah, it was 1982, and Dan gets 2 points for that because he got the year exactly correct.
right.
Spot on.
That's right. So we're going to move along. Colin's going to be up to bat on this one, and this was the year that the number of breweries in the United States hits the lowest mark of the 20th century. In what year were there fewest breweries in the U.S. of the 20th century? That's a little bit of a convoluted one, but
I'm going to say 74.
you're going to say 1974. Steph, what do you
See,
think?
I would think. I'm thinking like 1933. I'm thinking end of Prohibition
You're thinking 1933? Okay.
because I don't think many of them came back after that.
It's a good strategy. Dan, what do you think?
Okay. Can you?
We've got 1933, we've got 1974, and no, I cannot.
We're looking for the fewest when we had the fewest.
The fewest operating breweries in the United States.
So you said 33.
Yes,
Mhm.
I'm gonna go with
$1.
1921.
1921.
What? That was. Oh wait, that might be a good strategy because that's during
During
Prohibition.
Prohibition.
Yeah.
Actually, Colin was the closest. The year was 1983,
Wow. Yeah.
which was
The-
1 year after the first Great American Beer Festival.
The era of consolidation really got things down. I think
Yeah.
the low point, it was maybe 60?
It
You
was-
probably have the number over
I
there.
do.
but
In 1983, 51 brewing
51,
companies
yeah, even under
operated
60.
80 breweries in the United States.
Wow.
It was
And now there are currently...
Well, that year, the top 6 breweries, Anheuser-Busch, Miller, Heilmann, Stroh, Coors, and Pabst, controlled 92% of U.S. beer production. Wow. But in the years to come, we all know the explosion of craft beer. According to the Brewers Association, as of June 2013, there were 2,538 breweries operating in the United States, 2,483 of which were considered craft breweries.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was 1983 when breweries hit 20th century low. Colin gets 1 point for being the closest on that one with 1974. Moving along to Steph. And this one has a bonus question, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
All right.
The question here is, when was the first malt liquor, I'm making quotes with my hands for our listeners,
Air quotes.
malt liquor was made in the United States in what year?
Malt liquor.
The first malt liquor. Now, to clarify, we're talking about the first that was sold as a malt liquor.
1941.
You're going to say 1941. Dan, what year do you think that was?
72.
1972. And Colin.
Oh, boy.
1941, 72. It's a big spread.
It is. I'm going to say 1950.
You can say 1950, right in the middle of the century. Well, the closest was Steph with 1941, so she gets a point there. Anybody have any idea what that beer was? Or that malt liqueur, as it were? Probably not.
I don't know.
Old English?
No, it was not
I was
Old
gonna
English.
say
It was actually Clicks. C-L-I-X. By Grand Valley Brewing Company. That's not really a fair bonus question because I didn't know. Nobody was going to know that.
Oh, that was the bonus.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
whoops.
was so you thought that would have been like 1,000,000 points.
Oh.
But unfortunately, nobody got it. So the term malt liquor is documented in England as early as 1690 as a general term encompassing both lager and ale. In legal statutes in North America, the term often includes any alcoholic beverage not lower than 5% by volume that's made with malted barley. The legal definitions can vary from state to state, but the first U.S. brand marketed as a malt liquor was Click's Malt Liquor by Grand Valley Brewing Company, is credited as the first. However, the first widely successful malt liquor brand in America was Country Club, which was produced in the early 1950s. by M.K. Goetzee Brewing Company in St. Joseph, Missouri.
What was the year again?
Clicks was 1937.
1937.
1950s was Country Club, which became more popular. So this 40 ounce in a brown paper bag, pouring out for your homies tradition, continues with brands like Colt 45, St. Ides, Mickey, Steel Reserve, King Cobra, and Old English. Malt liquor, 1937. And Dan is up to bat as we move along to the next one, which also has a bonus question.
Ooh.
When was the first American microbrewery founded? The first American microbrewery of the modern era. Not counting like settlers brewing beers in their homes, but the first microbrewery.
Of the modern era.
Yes, in the 20th century, in fact.
Oh, man. 19.
Good start.
I was hoping you'd say that. 1980.
1980. Colin, what year do you think it was?
1977.
1977. Okay, we're dancing around the same kind of area. Steph, what do you think it was?
I'm going to say 1975.
You're going to say 1975. Well, Steph, you are the closest. You were only off by 1 year.
Yeah.
The year was 1976. Bonus question. Can anyone name that brewery?
Was it Anchor?
New Albion.
You are absolutely correct, and you
Yep.
get 5 points for knowing that. New Albion.
Yep.
The New Albion Brewing Company, yes.
As a point of note, Sam Adams recently released, about a year ago, released a revival kind of tribute beer for the whatever the anniversary was.
It was
of New
actually
Albion.
released January last year, January 2013. Boston Brewing Company revived it. The brewery was founded in 76 by Jack McAuliffe in Sonoma, California, and is acknowledged as the first United States microbrewery of the modern era. It closed in 82, but as Colin said, New Albion Ale was recently resurrected under the supervision of McAuliffe and Boston Brewing Company. And Boston Brewing Company is brewing, bottling, and distributing it, but all the profits are going to McAuliffe. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. So New Albion Brewing Company, the first modern microbrewery in the United States, 1976. We're moving along. Dan went first on that one. Colin's up on this one. What year was the first post-prohibition brew pub opened?
That's tough. I know the laws really varied state by state.
Yes.
The
first.
I'm gonna go with 1983.
1983, says Colin. Steph, what year do you think that was? The first post-prohibition brew pub.
I'm going to say 81.
You're going to say 1981. Dan, what year do you think it was? First brew pub, meaning a brewery that serves its beer at a bar on the premises.
Obviously.
I'm just filling in the dead air.
Thank you. Well, I mean, there's music in the background to do that. Let's go with, so Steph, you said 81.
Colin said 83.
83. I'm going to go back and say 70.
You say 1970. Well, Steph and Colin are both just 1 year off because it was, again, the greatest year in the history of the universe, 1982. 1982, we're in love with the early 80s here today on Happy Fun Time Games. The first post-prohibition brew pub was Yakima Brewing and Malting Company, also known as Grant's Brewery Pub, was founded by Bert Grant, in Yakima, I'm not sure,
No,
Washington.
right.
Yakima, 1982. It was regarded as the first brew pub, as we said, a brewery that is selling its own beer at a bar on site in the United States since Prohibition. The company produced beer independently or under a parent through 2004. The pub left a legacy in the brewing industry by reestablishing the business model and the craft model of what a brew pub could be. Chief executive of Red Hook said that having such a brew pub was essential to the fledgling craft brewers. 1982, first brew pub since Prohibition. And moving right along, this is... Oh,
Wait,
Do
we
I
each
get my
a
own
point?
or do I split a
Do we
point
have to
with
share
Steph?
it?
you each get a point.
Yes!
You each get a point. Why not? I'm feeling generous today.
I think you're going to win.
You just might.
We'll see.
There's no more bonus questions, unfortunately.
thanks.
And this is the last one, and this one we start with Steph. And this one is, what year was Charlie Papazian born?
Born. Oh.
What year was he born?
Oh my God.
Not what year did he found the Brewers Association, not what year did the Great American Beer Festival
1952.
begin. 1952, says Steph. What year do you think he was born, Dan?
Oh no, that's no, I don't know.
I was going to go with
1996?
45.
1945, end of World War II. Colin, what year do you think it was?
Oh, boy. My initial instinct was to go with 47.
Okay.
And that kind of splits the difference. So
It kinda does?
let's go with that,
You're gonna go
1947.
1947? Well, that actually puts you the closest because the year was 1949. 1949.
Wow.
I was
We're
going
all
to say
really close.
48.
Charles N. Charlie Papazian, an American nuclear engineer who founded the Association of Brewers and the Great American Beer Festival and wrote The Complete Joy of Homebrewing, all of which we've talked about earlier on this episode. He's the current president of the Brewers Association, and he attended the University of Virginia,
All
in
right.
point of fact.
So-
So Colin was closest on that one.
Going back to quick math,
Yes.
that would mean he was 29 when he founded the
He would have
American Homebrewers Association.
78, 50, 60, 70, 20. Yeah, 20.
Yeah?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh man,
Yeah, I know, right?
yeah, I'm coming up on 30, and I haven't quite
I've
done
crossed-
anything cool like that.
Crossed into 31, and I've got I've got this podcast. That's
Yes.
But yeah, so that's gonna do it. I'm gonna add up the scores real quick here and see who our big winner today is. It's a dead heat, ladies and gentlemen, an absolute dead heat. In very, very last place with a whopping 2 whole points. 2 whole points, which he gained on one question.
Yep.
Is Dan. Dan has 2 points. Coming up right behind him with 3 points is Steph. And our big winner today, who, if not for his bonus question, would have been tied for you, Steph. 8 points Colin has.
All right.
And our big winner today with 8 points. Yes, with so without that 5-point
Thank you.
bonus, you guys would have been tied. But yeah, he ran away with it, 8 points, because he knew New Albion Brewing. So
Yeah, he
you know,
deserves it.
I guess he does.
After
So
last time.
that'll do it with this episode's edition of Happy Fun Time Games. Thank you all for playing, and I hope you all got a little beer-educated.
A little bit. But now, what we're going to do is get slightly more beer-educated.
Your beers. Know your beers.
Steph, what do we got?
So today we're going to escape the world of beers for a little bit and talk about the American Homebrewers Association
That's a
and
good idea.
beer-educate our listeners on what exactly the AHA is, how they can join, and why they should vote for Colin. So over 1.2 million people brew their own beer at home in the United States, and that's more than 1 per every 200 adults 21 and over. 60% of homebrewers are between the age of 30 and 49, and homebrewers are making 65.3 million gallons of homebrew each year.
And homebrew beer accounts for 1% of beer produced in the United States.
You're
Did
right.
we learn that on last episode, I believe?
Yep.
I
Yeah.
believe so. 74% of homebrewers started brewing within the last 8 years, while more than half started only within the last 5 years. The American Homebrewers Association, or the AHA, is a non-for-profit organization based in Boulder, Colorado, dedicated to promoting the community of homebrewers and empowering homebrewers to make the best beer in the world. As mentioned before, the AHA was founded in 1978 by homebrew author and Brewers Association President Charlie Papazian in Boulder, Colorado. They host the world's largest homebrew competition. And just a side note, entry registration for this year's National Homebrewers Competition will occur during late January and early February, with the first round of judging beginning on March 21st. So homebrewers, get out there and register your beers. This year's National Homebrewers Conference, as Colin mentioned, will be held in Grand Rapids, Michigan on June 12th to the 14th. The AHA publishes the Zymergy magazine, and they host multiple events promoting homebrewing, cider, and mead making throughout the year. The AHA is a division of the Brewers Association, a non-for-profit trade association dedicated to promoting and protecting amateur and professional craft brewers. So, how do you join the AHA, and why should you join? You can join the American Homebrewers Association on their website, homebrewersassociation.org. One-year membership is $43. It includes the print and online mobile versions of Zymergy magazine, special offers at hundreds of participating locations, including breweries, pubs, restaurants, homebrew supply shops, and more. Pre-publication discount offers on new book releases from the Brewers publication, and 10% off merchandise in the AHA store. And AHA members enjoy a discounted conference registration rate as well. The AHA also offers grants to AHA members interested in conducting homebrew-related research. Members also have access to the research reports. Members can also download presentations from previous National Homebrewers Conference seminars. Members have a chance to win a scholarship, which is a full tuition scholarship to the World Brewing Academy's concise course in brewing technology held at the Siebel. Is it Siebel or Seibel?
Siebel?
Siebel. I've heard everybody pronounce it differently.
Seabiscuit?
Siebel Institute in Chicago, Illinois. You heard it first here, Siebel, per Colin. Of course, you must be a member of the you must be a member to enter the National Homebrewers Competition, that largest homebrewed beer, mead, and cider competition. So that's another reason to join. And you have a chance to be a part of the GABF, the Great American Beer Festival Pro-Am competition, where you could team up with a Brewer Association member for a unique competition held each year at the GABF. The Great American Beer Festival members-only tasting is another perk of membership. You get tickets for the Saturday afternoon session at the GABF exclusively for those AHA and BA members, and you're also invited to participate in the GABF's extremely popular member ticket presale. You can attend AHA rallies, which are great events held across the country for members to meet up with fellow homebrewers at local BA member breweries for a day of beer and fun. So most importantly, however, being a member of the American Homebrewers Association allows you to vote for your fellow homebrewers to represent you on the AHA governing committee. The AHA is governed by a committee of homebrewers elected by its members, and this committee is an advisory committee to the AHA Staff and Brewers Association Board of Directors. The members of the governing committee are elected by the members of the AHA and charged with shaping the policy and activities on their behalf. The governing committee also appoints 2 members as designated to the Brewers Association Board of Directors. So as we mentioned earlier, Colin is running to have a spot in the AHA governing committee. So Colin, tell us a little bit about your position. What is your position, and why should our listeners vote for you?
Well, I think the biggest challenge facing the American Homebrewers Association right now is the challenge of growth. As we've talked about, the number of professional breweries, but also the number of homebrewers has skyrocketed over the last 5 to 8 years. You've seen the hobby just really take off, and it's getting to the point where growing sort of through a standard, growth pattern doesn't really work anymore. So you're seeing conferences like in Philly where, the venue was booked several years ago, and suddenly you have way too much demand. You've got people really looking for tickets all over the place. And so it's getting to the point where the AHA needs to work on focusing on growing smart and getting sort of representation for different regions. One of the things I'm kind of pushing for and pushing to enact as a change would be to have regional conferences on a regular basis. I know for us in the Philly area, this past year, the big AHA National Conference was fantastic. It was, for many of us, the first time we got to get together with other clubs. There were 85 clubs pouring at club night. So it was really neat to walk around the room and see clubs from, Southeast Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, all bringing their beer and bringing their passion and kind of showing off. And my thought is that that's something we could do maybe every other year, have a regional conference that maybe it rotates within the region, and it doesn't need to be something incredibly elaborate, but just something to bring homebrewers together that's just a step above and is kind of overseen, supervised by the AHA. So that's one of my main sort of platform ideas, but also for me personally, I'd like to represent our local area and represent the Philly region and the Mid-Atlantic on this council to see kind of a new perspective, a new voice, get a little bit of PA love on the committee, and with the idea of overall legalization as an achieved goal, that's checked off the checklist. So now it's kind of what can the AHA turn its eyes toward, and I think the next step on the legal front is looking at smart laws. We talked about it a little bit earlier, the idea of in a lot of states, you can't legally transport homebrew. You can make it and drink it and share it, but you can't legally get it, put it in your car and get it from point A to point B. So I think the next thing on the legal front is to look at the state's laws and advise legislators to make some changes to just, nothing radical, not pushing for total legalization. That's already been checked off. Every state, all 50 states have legal homebrewing, but it's just some of the little weird idiosyncratic implementation things that a lot of states have kind of odd laws. So
Now, what about, you talked about transporting homebrews. What about mailing homebrews? Because I know a lot of times when homebrewers try to enter competitions and they're out of our region, it's very tricky for us to mail our beers to those competitions.
Yeah, shipping beer in general is a very weird state-by-state kind of issue. And in a lot of cases, it falls on a tax issue or, Pennsylvania, you can't ship alcohol into Pennsylvania of any kind. So, or legally. And so you get into a lot of weird things like that it would make sense to be able to, but a lot of states haven't approached those laws yet.
Right. Well,
so I think the AHA can kind of gently push in that direction. They've made great strides. We were talking about 4 or 5 states that the AHA was instrumental in enacting that change. And I think looking at the laws on a state-by-state basis and kind of coming up with a common sense framework is the next idea.
So what's the, speaking of the legalities involved in homebrew, something like the homebrew conference where people are serving their brews to one another, is there any legal, or is it sort of like if you booked a hall and had a party and served beer, it's the same kind of thing?
The big hurdle is it needs to be apparent that people are not paying for the beer.
Right.
So the brewers aren't getting compensated for it. And when you're, if you're buying entrance, you're not paying for the beer, you're kind of maybe paying to get in.
Right.
And so, and again, that varies a little bit on a state-by-state basis, whether, liquor licenses are necessary or are, helpful, and you get into insurance issues and things like that. But, I think overall the members, the club session at the conference this year was a fantastic success, and it was just really a lot of fun to share.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
I noticed this year for the homebrew competition that the AHA is going to limit the amount of beers that homebrewers can submit to kind of give more people an opportunity to enter.
Yep. That's one of the growth things, that the number of entrants has really grown, but the number of judges is growing at a much slower rate. And that's something that you want to ensure the quality of judges, but at the same time, open up the competition to as many people as possible. So this limited, you can only enter a certain number of beers sort of thing is the middle step, while more judges kind of come up through the ranks and more people volunteer to judge. And
now, is the AHA involved in holding beer judge classes? Can they promote and try to encourage more people to become judges?
I'm not sure.
I know Keystone Homebrew, one of our local-ish homebrew shops, their Montgomeryville store is doing the beer judge classes coming up, and I would love to do it, but it's like 6 or 8 weeks commitment once a week, and for me, it's over an hour drive, and if it was more local, I would love to take part in something like that. But
yeah, that's something that, again, it's this sort of talent gap that you've got a lot of people who can make tasty beer and want to get it judged, but there just aren't quite enough judges that even some of our local competitions are starting to limit the number of entries. And unfortunately, it's a necessary thing at this point.
So voting starts on February 21st and runs through March 31st. Now, do members vote online? How is voting done?
Yep, it's an online form. There are currently 8 seats open. Based on the rotation and term limits and things like that, there are 8 seats open. 5 incumbents are running for re-election, and then there are 21 other candidates. So there are 26 people going for these 8 seats. And it's an online voting form, and you're able to vote for up to 8. You don't have to vote for all 8. You could just vote for me.
Can you vote for you 8 times?
You cannot, unfortunately. Yeah, that would be fantastic. But there are a lot of really good candidates from all over the country. There are people with upwards of 20 years of homebrewing experience. There are some newer people. There are really candidates from all over. It's a really, really strong list.
Now, I know one of the big things that you mentioned about your platform was getting a little more representation from our basic geographic area, and that you said it was very West Coast heavy. Since people do have the opportunity to vote for 8, are there other candidates also representing at least the East Coast?
Amy Richard is a candidate from Philadelphia. Okay. She was involved in the Philly Beer Geek competition this past year. So she was one of the other finalists in that. Very, strong homebrewer, very active. She was at the conference in Philly also. So she's bringing another strong platform into this from the Philly area. Worth a vote.
So you're going to be doing some campaigning coming up. I know you're going to be speaking at the Berks Homebrew Club, of course.
Yep.
Can you just shout out some of the dates and let us know where you're going to be?
Yeah, we're doing a number of Homebrew Club stops. The first stop, I believe, is Buzz. That's January 20th. Then January 28th, I'll be at the Humeville Inn for the Aliens Club meeting.
And the Beer Busters podcast crew will be there also.
Yeah,
so not
and
only
it's
can
like
you come
you're
out and hear
following me.
Colin,
That's right.
you'll see us there too. Yeah.
And the next one I have scheduled is the Brooklier Club, the first week in February. That's, I think, the 5th.
The 5th. Okay.
Yeah.
And I believe you have an awesome website that people can check
I
out
do,
as well.
yeah. If you go to presby4aha.com, Presby, FORAHA.
Period. COM.
And of course, we'll post that on our website and our social media. And Colin and I are going to keep in contact throughout his campaign, and I'm going to blog weekly about his campaign and how it's going. And we'll post some pictures and some clips from some of your speaking engagements. And also, if any of our listeners have some questions for Colin and want to know more about his position, or you're just wondering things, you can email them to us. You can post them on any of our social media sites or comment on our website, and we will make sure we contact Colin and get those answers, and we will post them on our social media as well.
Yeah, I think transparency and bringing in questions and answering questions is a fantastic direction, and I'll happily answer anything and get replies to you pretty quickly.
Excellent. Sounds good. Well, good luck to you, and thank you for letting us be a part of your campaign.
Thank you.
I did have one other question I wanted to ask. As far as the governing committee, are there individual positions, or is everyone basically the same thing?
There's a number of subcommittees.
Okay.
So when you're on the general governing committee, you can take a position on one or two of several subcommittees. So you can focus on Zymergy, you can focus on the website, or conferences, or interacting with professional brewers. And I think that would be a good fit for me, is being on this kind of pro outreach sort of thing to interface homebrewers and pro brewers and work on pro-am stuff and that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, and I was just curious, like, if there was like a president, vice president,
there
treasurer.
is also a committee president.
Okay.
And then I think Steph mentioned earlier there are two members from the AHA governing committee who also sit on the Brewers Association board.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the crossover that the two groups are very linked.
Right.
And there's a lot of one of the ideas of growing the Brewers Association is to also do it with homebrewing in mind.
Cool.
Now, the subcommittees that you mentioned, is there a limit to how many you could be part of, or is it just kind of a personal thing?
I don't know. I'm actually not sure on that. But one of the interesting things, and a route I'd like to, should I not be elected, I'd like to pursue, there are seats on the subcommittees for non-governing committee members. So you can apply if, for example, I wanted to be involved in the interface between pro brewers and home brewers. There are seats available for non-governing committee members.
Okay, cool.
So I could sit on that subcommittee.
Good, yeah, you can get an outside perspective
But,
that way.
but
which is
you're
good.
going to be elected.
I would
It's
think
not
so.
even, not a
Yeah.
consideration. Well, we wish you the best of luck.
Absolutely.
Anything we do to help.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Cool. Now, sitting in front of us then, too, we have several bottles of stouts that you were kind enough to bring with. So without further ado...
Beer me! Beer me! Beer me! Beer me!
All right, so which one are we starting with? Is that the gold lager?
Yeah,
I see
we're
you
going to
pouring?
start with the gold medal winning gold lager from Stout's Brewing Company.
Now, was it named gold before it won the medal or after?
It's a valid
Before.
question. So what do we have here? We've got some notes on it. What do we have? A 4.7 ABV, right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
So if you're Lou Bryson, this is just above the session beer limit.
What does he say it is? 4.3?
4.5.
If you're Dan Baker,
Come
it's
on.
well below.
Yeah, 4.5 is the Bryson limit. But this is a very sessionable beer. It's a Munich Helles style lager. So it's got that nice gold, crisp, a little bit malty finish, smooth Saaz hops.
If I may, what for people who may not be familiar with it, what makes it a Helles style lager?
Helles lagers are light color, a little bit malty, not as hop forward. You'll notice in direct comparison, our other German style lager, our Pilsner, is coming up next.
Okay.
You'll notice kind of a distinct hoppy note in the Pilsner. The Gold is kind of a easier drinking, sort of session-y kind of beer. It's one of these, if you take a step back and look at what people consider the world beer style, this is kind of our interpretation of the world beer style, the pale lager sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is brewed with 2-row base and 3 types of aromatic specialty malts. Can you give us any hint of the specialty malts, or is it a deep, dark, keyed, dark closet secret?
It's not a deep, dark secret, but it's a Munich-style Helles, so a little bit of a giveaway.
Munich malts?
Munich malt is definitely
Ding, 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 ding.
definitely involved.
It's very good. It's very crisp.
It is.
Very
Yeah,
clean and easy drinking.
That's a really good way to describe it.
Now, before we finish off this glass, I think I'm going to start pouring the pills a while so we can compare the two styles a little bit.
All right, I will save a little bit then.
So, Colin, do you want to tell us about the pills?
Our Pils is a German-style Pilsner. Comes in a little bit stronger, 5.4%. A little higher in the IBUs also. It's 40 as opposed to the 20 of the Gold. And this, you really get the hop aroma. We do a lot more late hopping, whirlpool hops, things like that. And it's also won us a number of medals at the Great American Beer Fest.
Yeah, this won gold 3 times at the GABF. And it was also voted number 3 by Men's Journal for best beers in America. So that's pretty
Really?
awesome.
That's really cool.
I must have missed that issue of Men's Journal.
Wait, do you receive Men's Journal?
I don't, but as a man, I feel like I should.
You should.
I read
Absolutely.
it religiously. How could I have missed that? Yeah, this is definitely you get a little more of the bitterness, a little more of the hoppiness.
What I love about these two beers, though, is they're both so straightforward and so easy drinking, yet still complex and flavorful and interesting.
Right, yeah.
And
Yeah, there really is calling something a lager and a lager style doesn't mean it's without character.
Right.
And American craft brewing for a while had gotten away from lager styles as sort of a staunch opposition to the consolidation in the mass market macro beer. But Stout's, as one of the original craft breweries, one of the earliest in Pennsylvania, really stuck by that German roots. Where we live in a heavily German influenced area.
Yes, we do.
So really stuck by those roots with the Gold Lager and the Pils, and you're starting to see more craft breweries approach lagers. It's something that's coming back into favor because people are realizing, hey,
it can be done well.
Yeah, it can be done well, and they can have character, and they can be fantastic beers.
Yeah, these are very good, and I do like a lot of the craft beer, breweries are approaching lagers and these paler, lighter sort of beers. I know Sly Fox Helles is a good one that I really like.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's all
nice.
about the 360 can.
It's all about the 360 can.
Packaging
of course.
innovation.
That's right, packaging innovation.
Yeah, actually, on the lager front, it's gotten to the point there's a brewery in Framingham, Massachusetts, Jack's Abbey, that produces
Best lagers in the world.
exclusively lagers. And
they're amazing.
One way of thinking about it is, wow, that's a ton of tank time. But it also means they can really experiment and try some different stuff working on that lager framework. You can get American hops. They do a lot in the sort of IPL, India Pale Lager idea.
Right,
you have something that's heavily hopped and very aromatic American hops that happens to be on a lager base.
Yeah, their anniversary lager is fantastic. I just did one of their beers as a new brew review, I think last month. And I visited the brewery October of 2012. So it's been just over a year, and they were still kind of under the radar then. And since then, they've really blown up. And I believe they won a couple medals at the GABF or got some recognition there. But their beers are amazing, and they are really down-to-earth people, too. Yep. I got to meet... I guess it was Jack that I met there because I learned that his wife's name is Abby. And that's why it's spelled A-B-B-Y and not E-Y like you would expect. And they walked us around the brewery. They were doing, some playing around with some sour stuff. And I mean, they had some really interesting things going on at the brewery. So they're known for their lagers, but they're really playing around and doing some interesting things as well. So
yeah,
I love that brewery. Well, and it's in the Boston suburbs. So, I'm going to love any Boston brewery.
I like that the second one could still be kind of lager consistency, but still have the hop flavor.
Yeah.
I like. Yeah. For me, that's combining two of my favorite kinds of beer right there.
And hey, it's a little bit of a hometown thing, but I'd be willing to say that Pennsylvania makes the best hoppy lagers.
Oh.
I think you can look at Stout's Pills, Prima Pills, Sly
Pills
Fox,
is good.
Pikeland Pills, Sunshine over from Trogs.
Trogs, yeah.
You have a lot of these great Pilsners, and I think a lot of it's tribute to the German heritage and kind of that strong brewing background.
Speaking of hoppy ones, I think we're going to get a little hoppier. I just poured the APA, the American Pale Ale. Why don't you tell us about that one, Colin?
Sure. The APA is 4.1%, definitely below the Bryson limit, a session beer. It's kind of an
It's
amber
about a
color.
third of the Dan limit.
Come on, really?
Sorry.
I'm never gonna live that down.
No, you're not.
But this is a straightforward kind of archetypal American Pale Ale. You get that Cascade hops. It's dry hopped, and our late edition, our Whirlpool edition, is Cascade, and you really get that. It comes through, and it's been the best-selling flagship beer for us for 10 years.
This is really. I really like this one.
Just the smell alone.
I like
brings
the
it in.
aroma that you get the hoppiness and the aroma, but you also get the maltiness and the sweetness in there as well.
But you don't get that bite that a
No,
lot of the
exactly, yeah.
the strong American IPAs have. It's very mellow and subtle and extremely drinkable.
Yeah, this doesn't really have the super bittering charge. We kind of play the hops out through later additions rather than heavy bitterness up front.
Yeah,
we want it to be drinkable. It's
You get a
something
lot of the.
you go to the pub and have a pint or two or three.
You get a lot of the earthy hop flavors, but not so much the bitterness.
Yeah,
with it.
I kind of get like a little bit of a floral taste out of it. I don't know if that's just me and my palate kind of confusing with everything we've already had, but I kind of get that, and then some of the earthiness that you
Yeah.
that you're
Well, and
talking
it's like
about.
you can really taste the hops because it's not super bitter. So you really feel that hop taste. It's very good.
So, segueing to the next beer, actually, if you're looking at hop character, we've
boy.
got the APA on the one hand, the American Pale Ale, which is very standard Cascade heavy. It's a lot of what you think of when you think of an American Pale Ale. That's our traditional side, and now on the other hand, we have this experimental new IPA, our 4-play IPA. It started out as a series of 4 different beers that we did last year, testing out 4 different hops, and we did sort of a taster's choice kind of thing at our last festival at the brewery, and started putting into production what we have before us. And it's not quite a single hop beer because the hop we decided to focus on, which is currently only called Experimental 03 or 06330. Yep.
Written down.
It's down there. Yep. So it doesn't have a name yet, but that was our aroma and flavor hop that we wanted to go with, and we decided to go with Apollo for the bittering, which was another one of our contenders. It was kind of the second place, so we sort of melded the two. Apollo is a much higher alpha acid, so you get more bittering punch for your amount of hops. And frankly, the experimental is only available in kind of limited quantities, so we didn't want to blow it all on the bitterness and lose some of the hops for aroma and flavor.
Now, is this actually one of the 4 recipes? Or did you?
Yeah,
this
malt.
is 3? Batch 3?
No, not quite. So our 4 contenders were all single hop. So we used we calculated for a certain level of bitterness, 60 IBUs, and we brewed each of those with the same malt bill and the same level of bitterness, but using different hops. So each one focused on a different hop, one of these new varieties, and what we ended up with was we took the Apollo bittering and went with the experimental 06300.
I love that. I think that should be the name, regardless. It should not be given another name.
For what it's worth, our hop supplier has asked us a number of times to come up with a name for the hop. If you have any suggestions, let me know.
I like experimental 06300. It's very sci-fi.
It's a pretty good name, right?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. There's a challenge for the Beer Busters listeners.
There you go.
If you have
name
a name
these hops
for experimental 06300, email us.
This has a
Yeah,
very
and the-
unique flavor.
It
very
does.
piney
Yeah.
to me.
It's see, I kind of get a little more tropical I get a little bit of.
I actually get like almost like a coconut cake.
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually, so Brett, our head brewer, when we tasted this was just bottled yesterday, so very fresh. When we tasted it off the bottling line at the end of the workday after work was complete,
Yes.
he said, "Man, it almost tastes like Malibu rum."
Yeah.
And you kind of get that. You get that coconut, a little bit of pineapple-y, and that's all from that kind of crazy experimental new hop.
I like it.
So-
like it. It's a very unique flavor.
Whereas our American Pale Ale is what you'd expect. This is a little bit not what you'd expect, but I think it's still a fantastic beer.
It
Now,
really
is this going to be a year-round offering now?
Yep, it's year-round in full production. The first 2 batches have rolled off the bottling line last week and this week, and you'll start to see it in stores hopefully pretty soon.
Is it going to be in 4-packs or 6-packs?
6-packs.
6-packs.
Yep, 6-packs, 12-ounce bottles, rolling out lots of draft too, keeping me busy, but hey, that's a good thing.
That's a good thing, yes.
So I'm really excited about this last one. I don't
Yes.
have a lot of information about it. It's in a nice big bottle.
Yeah, I like
Brewer's Reserve across
the
the top.
tasting notes have the name of the beer, the ABV, the IBUs, a little background information. We get to the last one and it just says Black IPA.
So this is all you, Colin.
Yeah, so this was one of our recipes that we had done a number of years ago to kind of try it out. And we have this Brewer's Reserve series that we roll out in 750 milliliter bottles, a cork and cage. And we also do draft in select accounts kind of in our local, hometown market. So this is something you might see at Canal Street coming up. Maybe, just maybe.
Fingers crossed.
And, this was one of it's our series that we sort of play around with. And I have a couple recipes up my sleeve that I'd like to bring out in the series. Just need to find the tank space to do it. And this is one with the dark color, but hopefully not too much of the roasty, kind of bitey character.
Mm-hmm. This is
Wow, that's good.
actually it is very good. I recently you did a new brew review of the Big Hoppy, and this is similar to that.
Reminds me of that, yeah.
It's got the hop
Lawson's.
character of like an IPA that you'd expect, but then there's a little bit of a stoutness in there. There's a little dark.
The goal with the black IPA is generally close your eyes and think you're drinking an IPA. Like you can't really tell the difference, and you want just a hint of that character. Now we use debittered black malt, dehusked malt. And that's kind of one of these homebrew tricks also. It's a newer addition to most maltsters lineup, but it lets you get the color and just a hint of the flavor without too much of the kind of harsh, stouty kind of character.
Right. And if you were to close your eyes and drink this and taste it and then open your eyes, you would to see how dark
it's a bit of a surprise.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
would
is,
not
exactly,
expect this color out of it.
Yeah, it is a beautiful color.
This might be
listeners will know. I like
this
the
might be
color
the
of dark
one
beers.
time I think it would be really fun to drink in an opaque glass.
Yeah.
I'm generally an advocate for a clear glass
Yeah,
and
yeah.
eye up the beer and really.
I like this sort of thing because the appearance of things actually does have an effect on how you perceive the taste, and so to do something like this is an interesting, almost a little experiment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm getting a slight bit of like creaminess in the
Yeah.
mouthfeel,
Yep.
but I wonder if I didn't know how dark it was, if I would pick up on that.
Yeah, and I'm wondering that too because there is a little bit of maltiness, a little bit of that caramel sweetness in the background. But if you weren't looking at it, would you still taste that? I don't know.
See, and I was expecting it to be that, but when I tasted it, it was like clean and crisp, and I was like, "Ooh!" And I was surprised by it. So
Yeah.
it's interesting how color can change
What I
your
really like
perception.
about it is I really like that, one, the dark color, because I'm kind of with Wayne. I tend to prefer dark beers, but I get the hoppiness out of the IPA, but the maltiness smooths it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Not to go back to my stand by
No, I agree with
but
you.
it makes
Sort
it
of
a
This
little
is
more
a good time for it.
blunts the edge.
It makes it a little more drinkable than a typical IPA, especially if you don't like IPAs. This would be a very good transition. Like for me, I started out not liking IPAs. I was dark beer, and then I warmed up to hoppiness, to bitterness. This would be the perfect way for me to get into that.
And this is a style I was not familiar with until recently. The sort of dark.
Well, it's a pretty
darker
new
IPA.
style.
Yeah, and if you look at competitions and things like that, there's a little bit of controversy, beer geek controversy as to what to call it, whether black IPA is a good name or whether it should be because it's both black and pale or
Right.
one of our homebrew club members is really fond of the term Cascadian Dark Ale.
I like that.
Yeah, it's sort of fitting because a lot of you're looking for the Cascade hop and a lot of American hops grown in the Cascade region, things like that. But I'm still a fan of black IPA, and I think that's fitting enough. It tastes like an IPA.
Yeah, and it what's on the tin? It's a black IPA.
Yep.
It tastes like an IPA, but it looks like a darker stout.
Yep. And so the little bit of the pitch for this is a very limited run. We did 30 barrels of it. A fair amount went out in draft. We've got the 750 bottles, which are only available or are available at the pub and maybe hitting select markets. We're working on distributing those. The cork and cage, unfortunately, is very labor intensive. Yeah. So it's a lot of time to get.
Does that mean you're the one that has to do it?
There's certainly a lot of that. Yeah. So there's a lot of time spent filling, caging, corking, labeling, etc., to get them out. And so we're trying to do those in kind of target markets. Keep the home team happy, kind of local market just type thing. But really, your best chance of getting any of our Brewers Reserve beers is to come down to the brewery in Adamstown. Okay. We're open for sales Monday through Friday. You can come into the office and buy bottles, 6-packs, kegs, cases, etc. But if you want the full experience for the restaurant, that's Monday through Friday opening at 4, and weekends are open for lunch also. And 3 o'clock on Saturday is the tour by Ed Stoudt.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
I know we haven't actually talked a whole lot about stouts. We've been focusing more on your candidacy for the AHA. I was not aware that they had such a wide distribution. You said 17 states?
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that. I didn't know that. I mean, I know they've been around for quite a while, but I didn't realize.
And that's kind of one of the things from being one of the early players in the game, so to speak. They were able to open a lot of markets, kind of be one of the early craft beers there.
Right.
And it's when they finally got their beers on tap in Philly that Carol said that it really started to open up, and that's when they really started to get noticed. And she hooked up with a rep in the Philly area that approached her about getting the beers on tap. I guess that would have been the early 80s, I guess. And that's sort of when the beer finally took off.
Probably early 90s.
Early 90s, yes.
87 they started.
Yes,
right?
thank you. Early 90s. My fact checker.
Yeah, you're getting old.
I know.
All the decades just meld together.
They do.
The label with the American flag, which one was that?
That's the
Pale
APA.
ale. Yeah.
That American Pale Ale.
Makes sense. When we were talking earlier and I mentioned the Scarlet Lady and how that was one of, I actually remember also, and I didn't even think of it until I took a look at the label, having that one, because I remember the friend of mine who had introduced me to the Scarlet Lady also had a 6-pack, and I remember the American flag design on it. So that was one of my earliest craft beer experiences as well, which I had completely forgotten about until saw the label.
So favorites?
Oh.
I think the black IPA is my favorite only because of the lineup. It's the only one I've never had before. And you know me, I always gear towards the new beer, but I really love it. But the Pils is still one of my standbys, and I'm really digging the foreplay. It's a great beer. And it's exciting to see Stouts now have a hoppy beer as one of their standby beers, because I know a lot of the new craft beer world is into the hoppy beer. So that's exciting to see. Wayne?
I'm going to agree that the black IPA is my favorite, although I did find the foreplay IPA to be the most interesting.
Yeah.
I really like that one too.
The foreplay was a good lead-in to the black IPA. I just seeing the experimental one into the new one. I don't want to just be the guy that's jumping on the bandwagon. The black IPA, I would say, is probably my favorite because, like I said, it's a smooth take on a traditional IPA with a darker color. So,
although I was also very fond of the Pils.
Yeah, the Pils was good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, I think we did a fantastic tasting progression, going from the gold,
I think
working
so.
through hoppier styles
worked out
to
perfectly.
the new foreplay and the Brewers Reserve.
Well,
black
thanks for
IPA.
setting up the lineup for us. Much
No
appreciated.
problem.
Very good progression. Yeah.
All right. So now the beers that we have tried today, they of course will be checked in on our Untapped, and as we've gone through the past couple episodes. I'm not going to sit here and prattle on about our social media. BeerbustersPodcast.com is the only website you need to know, and everything important will be linked from there, including Presby4AHA.com. So don't forget to check that out. Vote for Colin. If you are not an AAHA member and you have considered homebrewing, do it. Join $43 a year as of this year. But you think about it, it's
Cheaper than Amazon Prime.
It is.
And-
Less than $50 a year, you get potentially free stuff out of it.
And yeah, check out the member deals on the AHA website. There are tons. There are 33 member deals in Pennsylvania. Growler discounts, pub discounts, 20% off at Iron Hill, which is fantastic.
That's
wow.
cool.
Yeah.
$2 off down the road at St. Boniface. $2 off growler fills. They have a regular who comes in every Friday for a growler who bought an AHA membership just for the discount.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
And, it works out great. So it's the kind of thing that will pay for itself, and you can vote for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's extra added bonus. And I just did some quick maths. It's also cheaper than Netflix and Hulu for a year.
All right.
Wow.
just saying.
Well, Netflix is 8. What's Hulu? 10?
That's the same.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought they were 10.
No, they're both $7.99.
And it's cheaper than 10 lattes at Starbucks.
Well,
Whoa.
there's a lot of things that are cheaper than 10
Hey,
lattes
now.
at
Oh,
Starbucks.
this is true. But just saying.
Yeah.
Awesome. What about internet presence for stouts?
Yeah, stoutsbeer.com.
Yep.
And also Facebook, Twitter. We're talking about an Instagram. I'm really pushing for it. I like
You
Instagram.
should run
I have
that.
a lot of fun with it. And I could definitely come up with good stuff to take pictures.
Yeah. And all you have to do is hashtag beer.
Yeah.
Are you the real Presby or the
I am the real Presby on Instagram
and Twitter?
And
Because
Twitter.
you have an awesome Instagram feed.
Yeah.
I enjoy watching your pictures. I like when you
It's
post
pretty
stuff
fun.
during
It's,
brew day.
it's not always beer stuff, but it's frequently beer stuff.
Mostly.
Hey, Dan.
Yes.
I think you could pass me that. I'd like some more of that black IPA.
It's
Oh,
coming.
yeah, there's
Here you
plenty
go.
left.
Make it so.
Thank you.
There we go. And so, yeah, Twitter and Facebook, is it just like Stouts Brewery, Stouts Beer?
I believe it's
Twitter is Stouts Brewery.
Stouts
Stouts
Brewery.
Brewery, okay.
Yeah.
And Facebook is Stouts Brewing Company.
Brewing Company. All right, cool.
Oh,
very good.
And for people only listening and not looking at things, it's Stouts with a D.
Oh,
Yes.
yes. Good point. Yes.
STOUDTS.
Yep.
Brewing.com.
Beer.
Beer.com.
Stoutsbeer.com.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Stoutsbeer.com. Yes.
Yes.
Wow. So,
Pluggy plugs.
yes.
Don't forget,
Don't forget.
visit the Beer Buster swag shop. T-shirts, stickers.
Well, I mean, I did say that everything important is linked off.
I
of
know,
Beer
but these
Buster
are
Pipe.
even more important.
I know.
And sign up for the newsletter because we're going to have more awesome, funny outtakes coming your way.
Yes.
I've been working hard on those.
Yes.
Okay, so have we covered all the stuff that we're not supposed to forget?
I
Yes.
think we're good.
I think I've forgotten.
Let's
not
wrap this
forget.
up.
Let's
right?
wrap it up. Yeah. So that does bring us to the end of another episode of Beer Busters podcast. And it was the great Charles Bronson who said, "I look like the kind of guy who has a bottle of beer in my hand." I do too, Charles. I do too.
I do when I have a bottle of beer in my hand.
Yes. So, of course, we would like to thank Colin for coming out today. And don't forget, if you are a member of the AHA or planning on joining, vote for Colin. But Colin, thank you for coming out.
Absolutely.
And thank you for bringing
Thanks
the
for
wonderful
having me.
beer. Oh, it's a pleasure. You're always welcome here. And now, of course, as usual, I am Dan Baker, joined by my co-host and brewologist,
Steph Hefner.
and the household from entertainer,
Wayne Baker.
my friends. Thank you for joining us for this podcast we know as Getting Drunk on Air. We will see you next time.
Adieu.